Welcome, Brian. Thank you so much for coming, and so interested in what you're doing. Obviously, you're an EIR at BBVA, but you've also got your own startup that is working with banks. So tell me more.
Sure. The BBVA role actually is there's a new digital business group there, a new venture creation arm that seed funds new businesses. So the entrepreneur in residence role actually turned into a CEO role running one of those businesses. So BBVA is essentially our seed investor as a company. So the company itself is focused on small business payments and banking services, and we'll be launching actually here shortly. The name of the company is Azlo, A-Z-L-O. It's still in stealth. You'll see a little bit more of it in the next couple of months. And it is an interesting take, I think, on the small business banking and payments market that's particularly available today in the States, but it'll have international applicability as well. So happy to chat a little bit more about that as we get into the evening, or more now if you'd like. But
well, we can have you back once it's out of stealth, and we can get more info.
I can tell you lots about it. That's right. Yeah.
So tell me, what's your personal vision of where things are going as far as FinTech startups and the banks and their interfacing?
Well, neither one of them's going away. I think they will both still be here for a very long time. I think it's definitely got a regional flavor to it, depending on where you are. I think regulation plays a big role. I think a lot of waves of innovation behind regulated events, like Europe's a good example of that. The roles that fintechs and banks play, differ quite a bit than still a very fragmented market like it is here in the States. So I think you'll see a lot of variation globally. I think there's a couple of obviously very interesting things coming along that can change the whole game, things like blockchain and some other things behind the scenes that maybe might not be as customer facing, but it could really change the landscape. Digital currencies, obviously, cryptocurrencies built on top of them. So those really haven't had a big impact, I think, yet. I think there's a lot of talk and a lot of sound and fury around them, but for the average consumer or small business or banking services customer, they haven't really had a big impact yet. So.
And really, I found it interesting when I started running the FinTech meetups here, Bay Area FinTech meetup and Silicon Valley FinTech meetup, that what I noticed was that things were slower here than, definitely than the East Coast, because they tell me the big banks are over there, and so there's more focus, but also compared to Europe and Australia and even Australia, where I'm from originally, I'm shocked, and Asia. So I guess it's great that your focus is going to be global, and I wondered what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, similar to the previous comment, I think there's the great examples of where regulation or government intervention or action has changed the landscape just enough that it opens the door for a lot of opportunity for smaller companies to play. I think the States have lacked that kind of an event for a while. There were a couple earlier, in the century around Check 21 and trying to retire checks initially, but otherwise a lot of the big fintech successes here in the States have been built on top of the old way of doing business. We're doing payments, where some of those things are starting to change. In Europe, for example, around SEPA or PSD2, regulated change creates some space, and because the big banks are a little slower to fill new space because they're large and they're a little bit slower to move, a lot of small companies can fill it very quickly. So here in Silicon Valley, it is kind of ironic. There's lots of startups and lots of activity, but in FinTech in particular, there's normally just a few in each of the various categories, and they normally have relationships with some of the established players in one way or another. So
interesting perspective, and let's hope that all changes and gets more happening here, because that's what I've been working at to support both the startups and the investors. Thanks so much for coming, and I'm sure this is going to be a really interesting conversation.
Thanks very much.